Welcome, and thanks for viewing. This film is based on a relationship between my father, James Jacob Warda, and his younger brother, John Abraham Warda. The purpose is to celebrate their lives, as well as others, through a review of a recently discovered document. My father, James, was born in 1925 and died in 2004. His brother, John Abraham Warda, was born in 1935 and died in 2019. The inspiration for this film was the discovery, at least by me, of a eulogy written in 2004 by my Uncle John Abraham Warda, called Uncle John from here on out. The document was given to me in 2019 by Uncle John's wife, Geraldine May Warda, nee Jeanette, called Jerry from here on out. We will speak with her in a moment. My father was one of 6 children blessed to their father, Abraham Jacob Warda, and their mother, Gizbus Warda, nee Evasian. Both Abraham and Gizbus immigrated from Iran in 1921 and settled in Chicago. They were affectionately also known as Abe and Elizabeth, or to many, Pa and Ma. Abraham was born in 1898 or so and died in 1976. Gizbus was born in 1898 and died in 1967. Abraham and Gizbus, or Pa and Ma, had 6 children: Alice, James, Helen, Sophie, John, and Jeanette. I was fortunate to have met and spent time with all of them, with the exception of Sophie. Sophie died of pneumonia just short of her 6th birthday in 1933. Thank you so much for giving us some time and appearing in this film.
You're welcome. I'm glad to do it, Jim.
Let's start by hearing just a little about you and your family background. For example, about your mother, father, Joseph, and Ann, and your sister Joan.
Oh, my mother and father were both born in Chicago, and we lived on the south side, 22nd and Kedzie. My father was a painter and decorator. He even painted the Chez Paris. My mom worked for Hot Point, and my sister and I went to St. Ludmilla's Catholic school. And my sister went to Kelly High School, and I went to Our Lady of Lourdes.
So you just have the one sister?
Yes, one.
Very nice, very nice. And your parents, of course, are passed on?
Yes, they died at an early age. Both were about 63 years old.
That's very young.
Yeah, it was too bad.
Yes, it is. Let's shift gears slightly.
Okay.
So how did you meet Uncle John? And I know you were married a long time, but how did you meet him?
Oh, we met at the Roma. By DePaul, there was a hangout. And we all hung around this, it was called the Roma, like ice cream parlor, soda parlor kind of place. And he played the drums in a band, and he was playing New Year's Eve at DePaul. And so they fixed up a blind date for me with him. And we went out for coffee afterwards, and then he brought me home. That's how we met.
Who set this up?
The blind date.
A friend of yours or a friend of Uncle John's?
A friend of one of the guys that was hanging around with us. He also dated a girl that I palled around with.
So he thought that the two of you would hit it off, and obviously you did.
Well, it was just a blind date, and we went for coffee. It was New Year's Eve, so we always celebrated New Year's Eve.
So did you go for coffee that New Year's Eve or just another time?
No, that time.
And then he...
Because he had to play in the band till
Right.
midnight, yeah.
So then you started hanging out together. And
Yeah,
the rest was
we all
history.
hung out there, yeah. So we just kept going out.
You were blessed with 5 children, which unfortunately, 2 have passed on.
Yes,
But I think you have about 15 grandchildren or so.
I have 16 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren.
Did you plan or did you think about that of having 5 children, or did it just happen?
Yeah, 5 boys. I wanted 5 boys.
Oh, you did want 5 boys. It didn't
Because-
work out that way.
No, it didn't, but I'm glad it didn't. I had 3. But my girlfriend in high school, she had all brothers, and it seemed like a cool thing. So I said, when I get married, I'm going to have all boys because it'll be nice.
Yeah. Isn't that something? I never heard that.
Teenage thinking.
Teenage thinking, but it worked out very well. Having
Yeah,
2 girls and 3 boys.
yeah, 2 boys, 2 girls, and a boy.
We recall you lived in the building on Diversity Avenue in Chicago, which was owned by Uncle John's parents, Pa and Ma.
Yes.
Do you have any memories of that time while you were there that you'd like to share with us?
I just remember that they charged us $55 a month, and that was great because we didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
So I remember the rent and Pa always bringing things home from Maxwell Street, and it was happy there. It was real happy. The kids went to St. Bonaventure. We were married there. It was a really nice place to be.
So how many years did you live there, do you recall? 'Cause I think from there you went and bought the house on Greenwood.
Greenview.
Or Greenview.
That was 13 years. But let's see, when did Michael was being born when we bought that house? So I would say 7 years.
That you stayed on Diversity.
Yes. Yeah, it was a nice place.
Yeah, I always remember.
I remember,
And I hated this when my dad used to take me there,
yeah,
and Pa would say, "Go down in the basement and shovel some coal."
yes.
So I hated
You're
to
right.
do it when I was just a kid. To have to go there and shovel coal.
Yeah, I remember that. John used to do that too.
Yeah.
Had a
but
shovel.
I was a kid. I didn't want to do that.
No, I don't blame you.
All right. But I do recall that my dad putting in a new heating system for Pa in that building.
Yes, your dad was a really handy
Very
guy.
talented,
Yeah, very talented man. Very, very nice. You lived on the 2nd floor, and then when you moved out, when Jim and Hilda moved out, then Helen moved up to the 2nd floor, and Helen and Don, and then John and I moved on the 1st floor.
I know I was there when I was very small, but I really don't recall living there. I think it was probably just the first year or 2.
Yeah, you were.
I was just a baby, I think.
Yeah, you were a little tot. I remember you when I married John. You were about that high.
Okay. Now we'll change subjects again a little bit.
Okay.
I know that Uncle John respected and loved his older brother very much. My Uncle John, would tell stories about his older brother. One being about the time when his brother, my dad Jim, mailed shoes from overseas during World War II. And I heard this story a couple times, but the way Uncle Johnny told it was always a lot of fun.
It was funny when he told it.
Yeah, it sure was. So these shoes my dad sent were too big for his little brother, Uncle John.
Yes.
But he said, "Don't worry, you will grow into them." Uncle John always enjoyed telling us this story and made us laugh. I know you had a couple other maybe little stories you wanted to share that were.
But about the shoes, he wore them anyway.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, they didn't fit him.
Do you remember that happening?
I remember John telling
Oh,
me.
you weren't married yet when that would
No, no, we weren't married, but he told me the shoes didn't fit him, but he wore them anyway because his brother sent it to him. That's what I wanted to say mention about that.
That was a cute story. My sister and I, we always enjoyed hearing that story. And Uncle Johnny had a good way to tell stories.
He did.
He always remembered so much detail
Yes.
in his stories.
Yeah, and he did tell a lot of stories.
He did. He was very good. Sometimes I always thought, well, I can just say one thing and then I'll shut up and then he can take over and he'll tell us stories.
In fact, Nicole did this. She interviewed him one year, John, and I'd still like to get that tape.
Oh, it was on tape.
Oh, yes. And she says she has it.
Oh, that would be nice to see.
It would be because she was asking for school. It was a project.
Right.
I don't want to take away from the rest, but that's very interesting. It would be interesting.
You observed Uncle John and his older brother, my father Jim, for many years. Can you comment on how you saw their relationship, and do you have any specific memories of the two of them as brothers?
John was crazy about Jim. Jim walked on water. His brother did everything right. This is John telling me. He said he's crazy about his brother. He fixed John's car when he got his first car. He just was crazy about him. Jim could do no wrong.
I did hear stories, and my father spoke very highly of his younger brother, and I would say that whole family, those two were very close, and I saw as when my father was older and closer to his death, Uncle John was very sad. I could tell it was very
hard
watching his older brother.
It was.
Get sick and of course eventually pass away.
Yeah, it was hard for him. It was, because he was so crazy about him.
So now tell us a little bit, and this is what drove this movie a little bit, about this eulogy document that I just discovered last year. So how did you find it, or did you know of it? Where did you find it? And or did you know of it before, years ago? Can you talk a little bit
No, it
about
wasn't. I don't think he had it here years ago. I think it was in recent years that he put it together because he knew how sick Jim was. And so you're talking about the eulogy?
Yes.
He put that together in recent years.
Oh, because I thought that was something he wrote way back when, but I wasn't sure.
No, it really wasn't, because he knew he was very sick and he wanted to say that when he passed away. But he was too broken up to get in front of everybody and talk about it. So I guess we just handed it to you, or he did.
Well, I'm glad you did, because it's a very touching document. It really showed how he felt about his older brother, my father, and I know how my father felt about him. So I'm glad that document was found, and this movie helped celebrate the relationship of the two of them.
That's great.
They had.
Yes, and I'm glad he did too, because it's in his own words. I could tell you anything.
Right.
But this was in his own words.
Exactly.
So it was really
It
good.
was really from the heart that he wrote.
Yeah.
I never saw that side of him. Really.
Neither did I.
So,
And I was married 63 years. But he did have a soft spot for people who were sick and things like that. But he loved his brother.
he did. And again, I thank you so much for bringing that document to my attention, and which was the inspiration for me to put together this little movie. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time to help me make this movie possible.
You're welcome. I'm glad, James.
Thank you. So here it is, the original handwritten eulogy written by Uncle John. I currently have it in archival safe plastic for safekeeping. However, for viewing purposes, which you'll see shortly, it has been retyped for the screen. At a time like this, it's difficult to find the appropriate words. But I guess the words most spoken are, "I'm sorry," or "I'm sorry for your loss." So from me and my wife, Jerry, and all our family, we say to Karen and Dick and your family, to Jimmy and Inga and your family, and to our sister Dolly, we're sorry for your loss. And I say to myself, I'm sorry too. For I not only lost my brother, but I lost my friend, a friend I respected, admired, and loved with all my heart. When I was very young, I felt like I was the luckiest kid around, for it was like having two fathers. One, of course, my dad, the other, my big brother. I learned many things from these two great men. I learned about honor, respect, and the value of a family. In those early years, there were not many funerals. Our parents and elders were still in the prime of their lives, and because of their past, they cherish each and every day. But in those early years, there was a lot of picnics and weddings. So at these affairs, Ma would be with her lady friends, and Pa would be with his friends. People like Alex and Susie George, Emma and Eddie John, Baba and Lucy Aslan, Margaret Daniel, and Barhu, Sargis, Oshana, Daniels, and Pira families, and so many more. They would be joking, laughing, and telling their stories. And some of those stories have been told before, but nobody seems to mind, for it was a day of celebration. Sometimes I would sit back and just watch and listen to these people, and I began to realize there was something special about all these people. And after several years, I found out what that specifically was. It was how these brave and courageous people, against all odds, gathered their families and the few belongings they had and made their way to this country, not only to see a better life for themselves, but for their children and their children's children. And many of us here tonight are the recipients of their journey. So at these affairs, Jim would take me around and introduce me. Jim and Pa felt it was important that I knew everyone, and everyone knew who I was, because one day I too would sit with the elders. But that never happened. They are all gone now, and things have changed. But Jim's introduction of me was always the same. He would say, "I'd like for you to meet my kid brother." And my response was always the same. And I would say, "I'm happy to meet you." And that's the way it was for a long time. Then one day, at another affair and another introduction, Jim hesitated. As I looked up to him, he put his hands on my shoulder and smiled at me. And he said those words that I so longed to hear. He said, "I'd like for you to meet my brother." What a thrill it was for me. What an honor it was for me. For I was not only known as the son of Abraham, but now I would be known as the brother of James Warda. The kid was gone, and now I was someone. What more could I ask for? And afterward, people would say, "Aren't you Jimmy's brother?" And I was always so proud by saying, "Yes, I am." So now my good friend is gone, and once again I'm sad. But I felt this sadness before. I felt this when I lost my mother and dad. My son and my sisters and a grandson, a young child at birth that never had a chance at life. But I have my memories, and they will last me a lifetime. But one memory I have took place January 24th, 1950. On that day, James Warda and Hilda George stood hand in hand on the altar of God, and on that beautiful day, they became one. If I had one wish today, and one wish only, I would hope and pray that in the heaven above that these two people be united to share their everlasting life. Jim would not let us walk in the shadow of his passing, but in the light he provided. May God have mercy on his soul, and may my friend rest in peace. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this remembrance as much as I had in creating it. Also, a very sincere thank you to Jerry for all her support, and we appreciate her agreeing to appear in this film. Lastly, our prior generation, the World War II generation, the greatest generation, as some say, are sorely missed. They were an inspiring group of people that gave all their children an opportunity to have many wonderful memories. Unfortunately, it's impossible to mention all the people that affected our lives. We thank all of them, not only the World War II generation, but also our ancestors for giving us all that we have today. Thank you again so much for watching.